young adults, and everyone can apply in their daily life. Things that we can do to really connect our personal and our professional lives and the Hindu way of living. So with that, I'd like to start off with Dr. Mark Halpern, and we can go from there.
Namaste. I'm very happy to be here with all of you and to be able to share some of the Ayurvedic wisdom as it pertains to the Dharmic way of wellness. Up here? Okay, very good. And so what I thought I would share with you today is based on a request from several of the guests that I've been talking with since I've been here. And the question that I receive is about a concept in Ayurveda called ojas. How many of you have heard of ojas? Raise your hand. And so many of you have not really paid too much attention to ojas. So let's talk about what ojas is, because this is a very, very important concept in Ayurveda. Ojas is that which stabilizes and protects your body and your mind. It is what really resists the effect of stress in our lives. We're all under stress. We're under physical stresses, emotional stresses, chemical stresses. If your ojas is strong, Ayurveda says that even in a stressful environment, you can remain well. I think of ojas like wearing a raincoat in a great storm. So there's a storm going on, lots of wind and lots of rain, and it's going on all around you. And yet, when your ojas is strong, you're not touched by the raindrops. It touches the raincoat and it washes off of you and it leaves no residue. This is ojas. Ojas is also the key to being able to sustain contentment. Ojas is what gives your mind endurance, the ability to endure stress. So if you have strong ojas, you have a solid foundation from which to be content. It's an essential part of your physical and your emotional well-being. So I want to give you some practical tips on how you can build your ojas. Ojas is, another way I talk about ojas sometimes is like a bank account that you have. And so if you have an ojas bank account, I would ask you, how much ojas do you have in your account? This is an important question to ponder, because the more ojas you have in your account, the more stress you can tolerate. But as your ojas level drops and the stress level rises, eventually you go bankrupt. And when you go bankrupt, then your body and your mind break down. And that's when you have your serious diseases, either physically or emotionally. So let's talk about how ojas is made in your body first. Ojas is made in your body through the proper digestion of certain foods, which means you have to take in those foods and you have to be able to digest them properly. Those are two very important things, because these foods are heavy. These foods are deeply nourishing. Things like grains and nuts and oils, these are all ojas producing substances. But if you don't digest them properly, what happens is, rather than producing ojas, you will produce something called ama. Ama is a toxin produced in your body that spreads from your digestive system around your body and interferes with cellular functioning. And so when you consume your food, if you digest it well, you build ojas. If you don't digest it well, then you produce ama. If you digest it well, you will have great endurance of your body and your mind. If you don't digest it well, then you're going to be fragile and you're going to find yourself struggling. In so many ways, you've heard the old adage, you are what you eat. In so many ways, the truth is that you are what you digest. And so the key to building healthy ojas is to have healthy digestion. What does that actually look like? It means that when you consume your food, that you're not producing a significant amount of gas, You're not having a significant amount of burning and digestion. You're not feeling bloated and you're not feeling heavy. You feel light and you feel energetic after your meals, and you have the energy that you need in order to go through your day, which is a good question to ask yourself. How much energy do I have, and how much stress can I endure? When we work with patients, we work with them on building up their ojas. So, tip number 1 is to consume ojas potential or ojas building foods: nuts, oils, grains, legumes, especially legumes like mung beans. It's a very good ojas producing food. So this is very important. Even root vegetables produce a significant amount of ojas. But you know what doesn't build ojas? Salads. Salads increase your prana. We need everything. Prana gives you that burst of energy, but it doesn't give you that long-term endurance. And so root vegetables will do that, but we have to digest them well. Number 2, choose the foods that are right for your, this morning I used the word constitution. But what I mean by that word, for those of you not familiar with what I mean by that, you may be more familiar with the term prakriti. Your prakriti is the inherent balance of energy in your body at the moment of conception. You each have a unique prakriti, which is why we're all unique, which, as others were saying, I talked about earlier, this is why nothing is right for everyone and everything is right for someone. Some people do well with root vegetables like carrots, but others actually will get indigestion. And others will do better with root vegetables like potatoes. And so your constitution or your prakriti determines how you relate to different foods. So choose the ojas building foods and choose the ones that are right for you, which means you may need to explore that with an Ayurvedic practitioner. And then you have to make sure that you digest those foods properly. That's the third component. And to digest it properly, there's a few fundamental rules. The first one I want to tell you is this: make sure the food is spiced properly. Ayurvedic cooking is the art of mixing the foods together, the foods with the spices, to make sure that we digest them well and that we produce ojas rather than ama. This is essential. And what spices are the best spices to use? Nothing is right for everyone. Everything is right for someone. So you have to come to know your prakriti. What is your innate tendency? What's right for you? The closest thing we have in the West to understand that would be a genetic model of individuality. But that model is so much in its infancy that it's not even really useful for most people at this stage of its development. But Ayurveda has been utilizing a model of understanding our uniqueness for thousands of years. It's extraordinary. So you can determine and use the right spices. And of course, you're going to need to learn more about Ayurveda in order to do that. Another tip to assure the proper digestion of food is going to be to make sure that when you eat your food, that you're sitting down and you're calm. You're not running around the kitchen, you're not eating on the go, and you're certainly not eating in the car on the way to work. Because if you're doing that, then all of your attention is somewhere else and you're going to overeat, you're not going to chew your food properly. This is so important to being able to digest your food properly. And perhaps the last tip that I want to leave you with, in terms of making sure you digest your food properly, is that you need to eat the proper quantity of food. So often we overeat. Oh my gosh, we are excellent at that here in the West. The food is so abundant, it's so easy to overeat. And the food tastes so good, it's so easy to overeat. And it tastes so good for a lot of reasons, you know. Now Western science has come up with chemicals and molecules that enhance the taste of food. And you know who is behind putting those molecules in the food? The food producers, because they want you to like their foods and buy more of their foods. So they're putting chemicals in the food that are going to enhance the taste. They're called flavor enhancers. And they compel you, they awaken your desires beyond your control so that you will have more and you will go back for seconds and thirds. So I want to encourage you not to have processed food. I want to encourage you to eat whole foods, because those whole foods will not have those molecules that compel you to overeat. And to assure that you don't overeat, reduce the amount of salt in the food. If you have more of a vata nature, you do need salt. But for those of you with a pitta or a kapha nature, less salt is going to be beneficial. So to assure proper digestion, eat till you're 3/4 full. Ayurveda and yoga both agree on this. If you overeat, you will put out your fire, your agni. You will not be able to digest your food. And instead of building ojas, you will build ama. And ama is going to make you sick. So that's the dharmic way of eating. That's the wisdom I'll share with you today. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Mark Halpern. Phenomenal keynote speaker and panelist as well. Next up, we have Dr. Sarvottam, who's a distinguished yoga educator and scholar with over 3 decades of yoga practitioner. He's taught for over and conducted over 300 classes and retreats, and we're excited to hear from you. Go ahead.
It gives me great pleasure to share about yoga in the week leading up to the International Day of Yoga festivities. Let me share a story from my own yoga experience in life. I began studying yoga and practicing yoga at when I was 11 years old. And this has been a big gift in my life. I'm so grateful and blessed to have been living, growing with yoga. I grew up in high school dreading the 3-letter acronym IIT. Perhaps some of you can identify with that. IIT entrance exam. I prepared 4 years for that, very intense. And there is so much expectations around getting through the IIT entrance exam. So 2 days before the IIT entrance exam, I went to meet my yoga teacher. So in the Indian tradition, we meet our teachers, our mentors for their blessings. So usually before the exams, he will give the students a pen, blessed pen, and we use that pen to write the exam. So when he saw me, he immediately recognized that I was anxious, not just anxious, petrified. So in 48 hours, I have to write this very competitive exam. And then he told me, if you are in this state of mind, you cannot give your best. So he had an idea. He said, on the day of the exam, come to my yoga shala at 6 a.m. in the morning. We are going to practice yoga for 90 minutes. And then I thought, what is he talking about? On the day of the exam, what do people usually do, right? They are submerged in a mountain of books, cramming this one more formula. And he told me, you're prepared already for 4 years. This extra 2 hours is not going to make any big difference at all. And then he looked at my eyes and he told me, I still remember those words. Don't forget yoga when you need it most. Don't forget yoga when you need it most. So I thought, okay, let me take a chance. I went to the yoga shala, 6 a.m. we started. 90 minutes of practice, including yoga postures, pranayama, breath regulation practices, and deep meditation. At the end of it, I felt so good that I was able to give my best. And not only did I succeed in the entrance exam, I amazed myself because I was targeting a rank in the entrance exam. I exceeded my expectations. Then I understood what a great gift yoga is. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yogastah kuru karmani, be in the state of yoga first and then do your actions. For example, just to uh, share about what Dr. Halpern mentioned about eating food in a calm state of mind, not when we are running around or mind distracted. Whatever we do, whether writing an exam, whether we are talking to a spouse, or whether we are eating food, it doesn't matter. Whatever is our action, make sure that we perform the action from a stable state of mind, from a yogic state of mind. And the practice of yoga is very unique. It is a great gift from the Hindu Dharma. The classic practice of yoga that is rooted in tradition is a holistic practice. So, what does holistic practice mean? It is a practice that attends to the system as a whole. In other words, not just a physical exercise, but it also attends to the deeper dimensions of our existence, namely the physiology in the system and the psychology. So it's not just a physical practice, it is also a physiological practice and a psychological practice. So for the purpose of today's presentation, we can say it combines practices for the body, practices for the breath, and practices for the inner world, that we can say meditation or deep relaxation and so forth. So let me briefly introduce what these three practices are and how do they benefit the system. So the most visible part of yoga, so this is from a yoga photo shoot that my wife and I did a few years back in San Francisco. So most people, when they open a yoga book or go to a yoga website, usually they find postures like this. But the goal of yoga postures is very different. So in yoga, the objective is to bring ourselves to the experience and the expression of the best within us. In other words, the experience of joy, peace, tranquility, creativity, and the expression of that. So whatever actions we do, we express excellence. So this is the twofold. So one is experiencing the best and then expressing the best. So for that, we need the cooperation of the body. For example, if the body torments you with its discomforts, there is no way we can give our best, right? For example, if you have a tummy ache, perhaps we had junk food the previous day, then we don't feel very good. And whatever work that we do will be mediocre, right? So we need the cooperation, we need the blessings of the body. For that, we have practices such as asanas and vinyasas, flow of postures. In the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, he gives two main benefits for the practice of yoga asanas. Would you like to know what are the two main benefits? The first benefit is it removes all the conflicts in the body. It removes any rajoguna, the conflicts in the body. These are called dvandvas in yoga, dvandva, conflict in the body. Let me give an example of a conflict. The body says, give me nutritious food. What does the tongue say? No, 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 give me junk food. And there's a huge war that is raging between the body's intelligence and the tongue, the Kurukshetra war, right? And what Patanjali in the Yoga Sutra says is, let us go for a win-win situation. When you practice asanas, all these dvandvas, these conflicts get resolved. There is no longer any conflict of interest. In other words, whatever is good for the body will be enjoyed by the tongue. You can trust your tongue. If the tongue says eat this food, then if you're a yoga practitioner, you can trust that it's going to benefit the body as well. What a profound benefit, right? The second benefit he says is, when you practice asanas, the body feels very light. In the Hatha Yoga Pratipika, this is called angalagavam, lightness of the body. When the body feels very light, you can forget the body. You see, one of the definition of health in yoga is, if you forget your body, you're healthy. If you forget your body, you're healthy. Would you agree with me? Most of us are aware of our head only when we have a headache, right? Most of us are aware of our right big toe only when we stub the toe. So when everything is in good working order, it recedes into the background, lightness of the body. So those are the two profound benefits of asanas. And then we have pranayama practices. The role of yoga in recognizing the secrets of the breath and harnessing the power of the breath is astounding. There are so many breathing practices, and there are so many secrets of the breath that the great rishis, great yogis have delved into. It is amazing. You don't find this in any other systems of discipline. And again, I'm going to present two benefits that are mentioned in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. The first benefit, he says, Maharishi Patanjali, he says, Dharanasucha yogyata manasaha. That means the practice of pranayama brings the mind to a place of focus, one-pointedness. My teacher used to say, when the mind is in pieces, there is no peace of mind. You want the mind to be focused. It's not just gathering the mind together, but it strengthens the power of determination and resolve. For example, when we take a New Year's resolution, this year I want to practice yoga, most people by Shankaranti they will forget it, right? But to keep the determination strong, if you want the mind to be one pointed, practice pranayama. And second benefit, he says, Tataha kshiyate prakasha varanam. Prakasha is the inner exuberance, the light or the life within. And many times that light is clouded by what we can call the brain fog. All of us have experienced this, right? When we cannot think clearly, there's brain fog there. Now, how do you deal with it? Yoga has the perfect solution. Just like if you want to remove smoke and reveal the inner light, the movement of prana. So most people have sluggish flow of prana. But to make the prana move in a brisk manner, the practice of pranayama, when the prana moves brisk, it clears the brain fog and reveals the inner light. The mind becomes so crystal clear and brilliant that it has access to creative thought, not just mundane thought. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, most of the time the thoughts are atatvartavad alpam cha, alpa. That means trivial thoughts. It's not going to help myself or anybody. Like trivial thoughts, right? Most of the thoughts that are running in our mind are not Nobel Prize winning thoughts, right? But we can elevate the quality of our thoughts by bringing the mind to a place of brilliance. And that is what pranayama does. And finally, there are inner practices such as many methods of meditation, deep relaxation, such as yoga nidra practices. And all these practices help to uncover the full potential from within us to manifest and express itself. You see? So many of the talents, many of the superpowers are hidden, they are dormant. It is like the seed that does not have the opportunity to express in a full blossomed way. Blossoming of human potential to fullness is yoga. You see, when we tap into the best that is hidden within us, and for that, when we practice these meditation techniques through yoga, this is where the true power of yoga shines. We are able to unfold the best from within us. To summarize, the power of yoga comes from this combination. So if you forget whatever I said, remember this one thing. The combination of postures, breath work, and deep meditation is extraordinarily powerful. When we introduce this combination in our daily life, it creates the platform for exuberant health to blossom in our life and also the platform for extraordinary personal growth to happen. How many of us think it is a good idea to practice yoga on a regular basis? They say it's a good idea to implement a good idea, right? Perhaps we can take this opportunity during the International Day of Yoga week to invite this profound blessing. I call yoga the blessing of the great sages, great rishis. And I hope all of us are inspired to invite this practice in our life. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. Give a big round of applause for Dr. Shibota. Talking about the importance of yoga, the implementation of yoga is so important. We're very grateful to have someone like you here. Next up, we will have Dr. Archana. Dr. Archana is a vascular neurologist and director of the headache care at the VA hospital of DeBakey, and she's been very involved throughout this process. And what we'd like to kind of talk about is how we practice wellness in the dharmic way. So whenever you're ready, go ahead, Dr. Uttara.
I'd like to start by thanking all the organizers for inviting me to speak here. By the way, the video was a surprise to us, and it was really well done to the organizers. The other disclaimer is that I came to know that I was going to speak with this long just a couple of days ago. So what I have done is I've actually put together sort of a quiz. So we'll go, as we go, we'll talk about a few things. So let's get started. Oh, actually, yes, that's good. That's good. So I'm going to narrate an anecdote before we get started on the quiz, and then I'll return to it. So I was talking to this patient who had a chronic problem. And after discussion, I talked to this patient about two options for treatment. One option was something that was a slow acting course of treatment that was I had seen good results in with other patients. So it had a good chance of actually treating the underlying problem. And it had a very small risk of side effects. So this was one option. The other option was a course of treatment where there would be immediate but temporary relief, so a sort of masking of the symptoms, so that it would help continue with the patient's functions in daily life, but it did not address the underlying problems, and that would continue. We would just continue to keep masking it. So these were the two options of treatment. What would you choose if you were offered both of these? So you might think the first one that had a chance of addressing the underlying problem, but my patient chose the other, did not want this, right? And we'll come back to the strained choice later. Yeah, so health-related Bharatiya knowledge systems essentially are the big ones are yoga and Ayurveda. I look at them as sister sciences. There are a few other traditions, health traditions also. There is Siddha, some other local folk kind of medicine. But the folk medicine would not fit under a traditional knowledge system, which has an extensive library associated with it, works associated with it. So I'll be talking mostly about Ayurveda and yoga. One of the questions is, have you all heard of Ayurveda before today? I know many of you might be well aware, but let me ask the other way. Did anyone hear of it for the first time today? And I'm mostly thinking of the youngsters who grew up here rather than people who grew up in India would have heard of it. I'm glad to see there is nobody here, but it's amazing how little people have heard of Ayurveda, while yoga people are very familiar with, right? Yoga is in the limelight here. So just to give you an idea of the popularity, 1 in 3 Americans have at least tried yoga. So, and there are 300 million practitioners of yoga all over the world. So if you haven't tried yoga, you should be suffering from FOMO, fear of missing out. So we can take Dr. Sriram Sarwottam's advice and we can perhaps try it very soon. All right, we'll get to the quiz now. Oh, I missed the last part. So this was the National Health Interview Survey here in the United States, which reported positive outcomes from those who said they practiced yoga, several positive outcomes. Okay, this is a little quiz. Some questions may be easy, some may be tough, but we'll just go along. So can someone identify the person? You know, Oprah Winfrey, everyone knows, I assume, but I would hope the other one too is familiar. Of course. So Deepak Chopra as you all know, a health empire, you know, the guru of wellness. And one of the things that many people do not realize if they're not of Indian origin is that a lot of those concepts, a lot of what he practices are all Ayurvedic concepts. They come from Ayurveda and yoga, many of those concepts, though I don't believe they're necessarily acknowledged as much. And this is something you will see consistently. Several practices which have their origin in or are inspired from Ayurvedic or yogic practices are given different names and then they are used, but the origin is never credited. Here's a picture of an operating room. Can anyone identify what we are what is circled there and how that might be related to Bharatiya knowledge health systems? I'll just give a clue. Those are surfaces, as you can see. Every circled. Yeah, but what about those surfaces? So somebody said germs. No, actually, those are copper-coated surfaces, right? Copper-coated surfaces to reduce the chance that germs can grow on those. And that practice is a very old one, used extensively. Drinking water was supposed to be stored for that reason, either in silver or copper vessels. Both of these help to partially sterilize the water. Sterilize would be a complete, but this is only a partial. So several disease-causing microbes are destroyed by storing them overnight in these vessels. And that, if you would, many people would know that was a traditional practice in India, which nowadays has fallen out of favor. Anyone recognize this and what the connection is? Anyone? The name at least? Yes, Aaron Rodgers. What about what is his connection to this? This was a few years ago. He underwent a course of Panchakarma and then spoke about it. So there are Ayurveda is being adopted by many celebrities. Have you all heard of the company Aveda? It's a cosmetics company. And this, I don't think there's any point asking the question, you probably all know already. So a lot of the Aveda formulae are Ayurveda based. So that's the beauty and wellness side of Ayurveda. Right. So this is yogurt. What's the connection with Ayurveda? Yeah, probiotics. So now it's a big thing, right? The whole probiotics thing. It's a recent thing we've discovered here, and people are prescribing probiotics. But this was age-old knowledge, right? Every meal in many parts of India, every meal was concluded with a probiotic. And that helps to keep the gut microbiome healthy, to keep away disease-causing bacteria, but not just that, to keep the gut health intact. So that's something also that stems from Ayurvedic wisdom. What does Starbucks have to do with Ayurveda? Yes, turmeric latte, what they call turmeric latte here. So that's something that perhaps most of you would have had at home for a much lower cost, right? This is what we got at, growing up as kids, this is what we got at night to sleep when we had a cold. All right, and I'll tell you this, you can see it's an injection, but what I'm trying to show here is a vaccine. What does that have to do with Ayurveda? Yes, the first known record of vaccination actually comes from Ayurveda, from Indian medical tradition. This was for smallpox, so I'll tell you a little more about it. I hope you're able to read if it's too small, you may not be able to. But cooled, this has been described by multiple of the British people who were colonizing India. So this particular person, Colt, he wrote in an account of the diseases of Bengal in 1731 that the operation of inoculation, that was called tika by the natives, was known in the kingdom of Bengal as far as he could see about 150 years. Of course, we don't know how accurate this is. Perhaps if it was even longer, but he was estimating it at 150. And this was generally practiced in a large part of the country, both northern and southern. Around 1803 or 1804, the British government banned this practice. Undoubtedly, it was done in the name of humanity. So prior to this, smallpox epidemics were not common, but we all know during the British occupation, there were repeated multiple epidemics that occurred. This is a very famous picture. Does anyone recognize this? Yes, this is Sushruta. He's considered the father of surgery, the author of one of the three, what we call the great three textbooks of Ayurveda, the Brihatrayi. See, he authored one of them. So in this one, he's actually shown doing a cataract surgery. So it's recorded that he used to perform cataract surgeries. He also is very well known for plastic surgery, where a deformed nose by leprosy would be, he would take cartilage from the ear and he would repair that. That's, you can imagine this was, we don't know exactly when, but about 5,000 years ago, perhaps, he was doing this. It's just remarkable. Does anyone know who the 2017 Nobel Prize winners for physiology and medicine were and what they won it for? No, not exactly. All right, I'll give you the names. That's kind of hard. And for molecular mechanisms of the circadian rhythm, it was Hall, Rosbash, and Young. The circadian rhythm is something that has been is a very fundamentally used concept in Ayurveda. So it's called the Kala. Desha and Kala are two very important concepts. So these influence health. In particular, let's talk about the circadian rhythm or Kala. So here is a picture of what the Ayurvedic clock is supposed to look like. So every part of the day is specified for the time when you're most productive, the time when you can learn the best, and that is what the normal routine or lifestyle prescribed is according to that clock. So when you're told wake up in the Brahma Muhurta, and what is Brahma Muhurta? Before sunrise, right? You're supposed to, for optimal health and optimal performance in intellectually, physically, you're asked to wake up before sunrise. That's when you're freshest. You get your daily routine done. That's when you meditate, you pray, you do yoga practice. If you're a student, you study, you do all that. And then as the day goes on, when should you eat, when should you sleep, all this is something that is tied into the sun's rhythm. Now, we're all guilty of not following this, or many of us are. I certainly am. But as we align ourselves with these natural timelines, and Ayurveda does not stop with just this circadian rhythm, there's also a seasonal rhythm. So certain seasons, certain diseases will flare up. They tend to flare up. Certain seasons you're supposed to do certain things, and certain you're not. So even the food varies that's prescribed. So this idea of desha and kala is really important. So if you're looking for wellness, that is something to look at. If you're a person with a, let's say, vata predominant prakriti, you may not want to live in a dry place. You may actually do better if you live in a place like Houston, humid place, right? On the other hand, if you have a kapha prakriti, you might actually do better in a drier place. So these are things which we can't always change, but it's good to know when we sometimes make choices. How are we doing with time? We're okay? All right. Now, here are a couple of definitions of health. There's a glare, so I'm not able to look at it here, so I'm going to turn back. So here are a couple of definitions of health from the West. In the 5th century, it was defined as harmonious functioning of the organs. Plato described it as a healthy mind in a healthy body, and that you needed to achieve harmony with the physical and social environment. The WHO gave a more comprehensive definition of health. Now, the first two don't allow us to really measure it, right? It's just a concept. But the WHO therefore came up with a concept of health that could be more tangibly measured. So, a state of complete physical, mental, and social well being, not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Western medicine, for a long time, was talking only about disease and treating disease rather than wellness or health. The definition of health given by Sushruta, again, thousands of years ago, samadosha samagnishcha samadhatu malakriyah prasannatma indriya manah swastha iti abhidhiyate, which is the doshas are in a state of balance. The metabolic fires, perhaps you could think of that as the enzymes, the metabolic processes, they are working properly. Tissues are being nourished well. Waste products are being eliminated well. And the consciousness, sense organs, and the mind are in a pleasant state. So it's a very wide, all-encompassing definition of health. Again, for preceded any such definition from anywhere else by a long time. I'm going to skip this. This is what Ayurveda is, and most of you, we've talked a lot about it. So, two things about Ayurveda. One of the things it emphasizes is actually protecting and maintaining health. It's not just about treating disease. And the second is really to cure diseases. So these are its two aims. Any talking about Ayurveda would be amiss if we did not mention Charaka, who's considered the original big physician, the famous physician of Ayurveda. I'm going to skip this because I think we might be short of time. There are a lot of, I have a few studies listed out just to show you that, in the last few decades, research from the modern's perspective in Ayurveda has just really picked up. And there are many examples of papers that prove or look into one specific Ayurvedic concept, such as Prakriti. There's a whole bunch of literature now about how Prakriti translates into differences in the genome, differences in methylation of DNA, differences in HLA gene expression. Several such differences correlate with the Prakriti. So it's a very interesting thing that using external phenotypic characteristics, they were able to identify these kinds of differences. Gut microbiome as well. All right. So that's the end of the presentation. I just wanted to leave you with a few things really quick. So the idea was to understand there's a very profound wisdom. Just as you saw, the Nobel Prize from 2017 was a development. Of course, they looked at molecular mechanisms, but the whole idea of the circadian rhythm being important, that concept was in Ayurveda. So there's a treasure trove of ideas. It's a very profound kind of science, both Ayurveda and yoga. So for those, one thing is, of course, learn more about it, use it for your own health. But also, if you're interested in the next Nobel Prize, you might want to look at that. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. Give a big round of applause for Dr. Archana. We had Dr. Mark Halpern speaking about the importance of Ayurvedic medicine. We had Dr. Archana touch on how Ayurvedic medicine is implemented in every aspect of our lives, even in the aspect of our lives that we take for so granted. So next up, we have Mrs. Charu Agarwal. Charu Agarwal. Mrs. Charu Agarwal is a lead consultant for NAMI, and she'll take it away, a social justice advocate.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah, now you can. So first of all, a deep bow of respect to everyone. You made it through the day. And thank you, Akhilesh, for moderating this. Before I came, today around noon when I arrived to the conference, I was told I'll be speaking in this panel, and I usually don't do questions, but it's always fun without questions. So thank you all for listening in today. I'm not going to go too much into what our esteemed panelists here have already talked about, the Ayurveda, the yoga, and all the ancient wisdom, the beautiful ancient wisdom that actually Hindu religion, the philosophy, has given the world. I'm going to talk more about NAMI today, about social justice, and about how we bring the youth to destigmatize mental health in South Asian populations. So what does NAMI do? How many of you have heard about NAMI? Quite a few, right? I thought so. So NAMI stands for National Alliance on Mental Illness. What do? We are a national initiative, a national company, actually, organization, which does a lot of advocacy work around mental health. We have 630 local chapters. One of the best performing NAMIs, very engaged NAMI, is in Greater Houston. So you are, you have a great resource in your community which you can count on for your mental health support. We have been doing Chai and Chat when, our introductions came in and we were told those were AI generated. So wow, AI is really doing a good work. So they brought up Chai and Chat for my introduction. What is Chai and Chat? Let me tell you a little bit about Chai and Chat and how you can get involved, because I see a lot of young people over here. I'm sure you want to get involved with mental health, and that's why you're here. You want support, or you just want to support a loved one, maybe a friend in your school or college. So Chai and Chat is an initiative which is for, by, and about South Asian communities. Meaning, we do about 3 conversations where we, as part of our initiative, we take the food to where people are. We take it to universities, we do it via virtually via Zoom, we take it to senior centers across all populations, but you have to be a South Asian to participate in Chai and Chat. We do have initiatives like this for other communities, but for Chai and Chat, we talk about the stuff that we talked about today. The whole day we were talking about ancient wisdom. We were talking about how to support your mental health, how to destigmatize mental health conversations in South Asian populations. Because I think everyone will agree with me today that we do have a mindset of what will people say, right? Yeah, I see a lot of nods. So we don't like to talk about our illnesses, be it physical, be it mental, in front of people. And that really prevents us from getting help. We believe in model minority myth, which a lot of youth will relate to. Gaurang Prabhuji today morning said about being what we are not meant to be. And really that's what we talk about in Chai and Chat. We talk friend to friend. Those chats are designed to be your kitchen table conversations, sitting in a kitchen table with your favorite aunt and just confiding, just talking about what's bothering you. Because that's the first step to getting help. So that's what NAMI is trying to do with Chai and Chat initiative. Now, how do I incorporate, and this is what I hear from the youth around the nation, how do we incorporate ancient wisdom in taking care of our mental health? Can someone give me an example? You do something that calls on your Hindu philosophy of life? Like, what do you do when you're anxious? Meditate. Yeah, that's a big one. We've given it to the world. Pray, yes, that's a big one. In a moment of crisis, if we have a prayer, that really helps us ease that crisis. Deep breathing exercise. Yes, japa. That's a big one. Before I came on stage today, I just, said mantras because the power of mantras, not just the energy that they give to us, but also the repetitiveness that the mantras have. Like, my favorite one that I always go to is Triambagam Yajamahi Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Urvarukme Vandana Mrityumokshi Mamta. That always calms me down. And one thing we heard a lot today, because our keynote speech was also on Gita, and everybody, obviously, when you're a Hindu, Gita is somehow embedded in your daily life, in your spiritual life a lot. We heard about Gita. The thing that I love about Gita is that it's so diverse. You can see, you can get so much wisdom from Gita that you can incorporate in your daily life. For me, do people practice grounding? Do you practice grounding exercises? Japa is one of them. Yeah, so if you really want to, you have few seconds before an exam, before an interview, your presentation, you say a mantra that comes to your mind. You say it several times to just calm your body down, right? To ground yourself. Nowadays, they have these really fancy stuff that's available on Amazon, the grounding mats. It's basically you go outside, you walk barefoot, be with the nature, and that helps ground you, right? We talked about eating food that nourishes our body, and we talked about yoga. Yoga can really help us ground. We talked about meditation, deep breathing. Now, all the ancient wisdom we really talk about doesn't have to be hard. It can be incorporated in our daily lives very slowly in small steps. For example, preparing a meal. Maybe start with preparing one meal if you have a very busy day. When you come back from work, relax, have a cup of tea, and then get down to preparing a meal that nourishes your body. So these are some of the ancient wisdoms that I really, try to incorporate in my daily life, preparing a nourishing meal, going for a walk. And how many of you have heard about glimmers? Maybe some younger folks here, because it's becoming very popular. Have you heard about glimmers? Have you heard about triggers? Yes. So glimmers is totally opposite of triggers. So those are a few things, like a cup of coffee, maybe a knitting project you might have going on. You have a pet you like to take for a walk. Super small activities during your day that you can incorporate to bring you joy. And that's a mental list you keep in your mind that you take with you throughout your day. Suppose you're doing a very hard, let's say you're preparing a very hard presentation for your boss and you really don't want to do it. You think about a glimmer that you can actually invest your time in after the presentation is done, right? So instead of triggers, focus on glimmers. Focus on that cup of coffee, the tea, or calling a friend that can bring you joy during your day. So going back to Gita, I like to read this poem whenever I want to ground myself. This is in Hindi, so if you read in Hindi, I'm sure there's an English version available for it, because this was a national poem for a long time in India. I think so, don't quote me on that though. Rashmi Rathi, it's the poem about Karan. Have the younger folks heard about Karan from Gita? Do you know who Karna was? Yeah, Karna. The underdog of Mahabharata, right? So there are 4 lines. So whenever I want to ground myself, I want to make my mind at peace, I bring this book out. I carry it with me. Lately I've started carrying it with me, and I just open it and I read it. I always have a page bookmarked. I'm going to read 4 lines and then end my presentation with that. When you're my age, you always need reading glasses. This is about the Pandavas. So keep these 4 lines, just think about it someday if you want to, keep it with you, because these really help me. वर्षों तक वन में घूम घूम बाधा विघ्नों से चूम चूम सह धूप थाम पानी पत्थर, पांडव आए कुछ और निखर। सौभाग्य ना सब दिन सोता है, देखें आगे क्या होता है। Did everyone understand? Perhaps not, if you don't understand Hindi. So Pandavas struggled a lot, right? They went into exile for 12 years. 1 year they lived, not telling anyone who they were. And they struggled, but they were preparing for something greater. So remember, your struggles are preparing you for something greater. And your luck never sleeps all your life. Times change. Always have that in back of your mind. Even when you're struggling with an exam, you're struggling with a failed interview, just relationships, anything. Do remember that it's gonna change. It's not going to be the same all the time. And contribute towards that change. Thank you all for listening in today.
Big round of applause for our panelists today. I know we're getting near to the end of our program, but what I'd like to offer is a very valuable insight. I think this panelist group of individuals will be the most successful individuals in which you can reach out. And from last year, a very big issue that we had last year wasn't necessarily that anything wrong with the event, but there wasn't a connection with the panelist. So what we would like to do is really talk to each of these panelists and understand more about their objectives, their goals, and their organizations. So I'd like to start with Dr. Mark Halpern. Dr. Halpern, how can individuals get involved with the College of Ayurvedic Medicine? And what are you looking for in students? Wait for it to turn on. There we go.
California College of Ayurveda, as most of you know, is in Grass Valley, Nevada City, California, near Sacramento, Northern California. But we also offer many classes online. In fact, you can become a practitioner and take most of your classes online and also attend intensives at the college to learn the hands-on portions of the training. There's academic training, and then there's also clinical training, and you can go all the way through to becoming a clinical or a medical even Ayurvedic specialist, which can take up to 4 years in order to complete. So you can become a counselor that works with preventative medicine, a clinical specialist that works with disease, and a medical specialist that really is the integrative bridge between Western medicine and Ayurvedic medicine. So you can connect with us through our website, of course, which is ayurvedacollege.com. You're welcome to connect with me, DRH, Dr. H, at ayurvedacollege.com as well. And I also want to encourage you to take a look at some of the books that I've published. Healing Your Life, Lessons on the Path of Ayurveda will tell you about my journey from being crippled all the way to being healthy. And it'll also then share with you the guidelines for how you can heal your life on a physical, on an emotional, and on a spiritual level by working with all 5 of your senses: proper diet, proper smell, proper sights, proper sounds, and even proper touch. Because in Ayurveda, all 5 of your senses are portals or gateways into your body, your mind, and your consciousness. As far as the students we look for students who really resonate at the heart level with wanting to learn Ayurveda, wanting to live Ayurveda, and wanting to share Ayurveda as their dharma. It really should be your dharmic inspiration to study Ayurveda, to help others in around the world, in your community, but around the world. If it's your dharma, then that's exactly what we're looking for. We'll work with you to support you to be a successful student. So feel welcome to contact our administrative team. They will support you to explore what that looks like, all of the details to enrolling in the college. And for those of you that don't necessarily want to be a practitioner, we have a lot of workshops and a lot of seminars in the realm of yoga, in the realm of yoga nidra, in the realm of general health practices that you can take cleanses. In fact, just before I came here, I was in Florida at our Pine Lake retreat, and we were leading an Ayurvedic retreat for the purposes of learning and living the principles of Ayurveda.
So much. Yeah, give a round of applause for Dr. I'd like to turn to Dr. Shivotham, and if you could speak a little bit about tangible objectives. I've been very particular about that word, but more or less on how we can apply this yogic way of living and the importance of yoga in our life, and also a little bit about the event you'll be hosting tomorrow.
The best way to invite yoga in our life is to practice it. There is no such thing as an armchair yogi. So many people have this question, I don't have time to do yoga, right? But that is not a very good excuse. In fact, it is a horrible excuse, because in 1 minute, namely 1 round of Surya Namaskar, sun salutation, you exercise the whole body, all the major organs of the body, all the major vital organs of the body, and it removes the brain fog, because we are also using the breath, the movement of the breath, to coordinate with the movement of the body. So it's a complete practice. In 1 minute, you can energize the whole system. So there is absolutely no excuse not to do yoga, right? So in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a shloka, Swalpamapi asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Even a little bit of practice is extraordinarily valuable. So if you don't have time to do 90 seconds of yoga, do 60 seconds of yoga. And the effects are so profound, even a tiny bit. It takes only 1 lamp to illumine the whole room. So even a little bit of practice goes a long way. There are 2 more things we can do. Many people ask, oh, how can I make my kids do yoga, right? So, in fact, my teacher used to get this question all the time, and his response was always the same. Do you practice yoga? Right? Again, to quote Bhagavad Gita, Yadyat acharati sreshtaha tattadeve tarojanaha. That means, acharati, one who lives the talk, they will inspire others. It is not through our words, but our inspired action that brings inspiration in others. So rather than preach about yoga, practice yoga. That way, not only do we give the gift of yoga to ourselves, but we inspire others to do it. That is why it's called acharya, acharati. Yaha acharati, saha acharyaha. That means one who practices what they teach is an acharya. They inspire others with their, it's like what Mahatma Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see. So that is the second way. And the third, I will just give a little story, very short story. This happened during the ancient Egyptian times when they were building pyramids. So all the slaves they were moving these big boulders in that incline all the way to perch this on the top of the pyramid. It was a very hard labor, very hard work. So in that period of history, one great invention happened, invention of the wheel. So the person who invented the wheel goes to them and says, oh, I have something that will make your life so easy. You know what the slaves said? Don't you see that we are all busy? Reserve your sales pitch for later. You see, yoga is like that. Many people think I don't have time to do yoga, but if they realize that it's going to ease their life so much, then the effects, the benefits are so profound that it makes sense to invite yoga in our life to make it easy. Many people think to excel in something, we have to do hard work. It's not like that at all. In fact, they call it the flow state. Again, to quote Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Tasya prashantavahita samskarat. There is a tranquil flow of peace. When you are excellent in something, there is a flow state. It's an experience of tranquility, not of struggle. So, in fact, you can start your own journey into the practice of yoga from tomorrow. Because tomorrow we have an International Day of Yoga session right here. And I'll be leading that session. So we're going to do a practice for 1 hour, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. We're going to do some asanas, not like what you saw in the picture. It's going to be very simple postures. And in fact, let me share that most of the practices in yoga that are profoundly effective are simple. To quote a great yogi, Pattabhi Jois, you might perhaps some of you have heard his name, he used to say that the purpose of advanced yoga practices is one thing only, for the sake of demonstration. So it might be okay for Instagram age yoga, but truly the simplest practices in yoga are the most powerful, most profound. So if this resonates with you, then I invite you to join the tomorrow's session from 10 to 11 a.m. Oh, okay. So if you want to register for that, you can look up in the Zoho app. There's a QR code to register for tomorrow's session. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. I'd like to thank Dr. Shivotam for giving such a wonderful speech on the basic yogic practices. I'd like to thank Dr. Archana for coming in last minute and providing such an interactive session for our guests and really helping us understand the daily implementations of Ayurvedic medicine. If you could touch briefly on the work that you have operating in Bangalore, and as well as the various publications you have in Ayurvedic medicine.
Yeah, sure. First of all, let me return to one piece that I left unfinished. I said I'll get back to it, but in the rush to finish at the end, I didn't. The strange choice made by the patient who chose the medication with more side effects, with really no chance of actually curing the problem. So the difference was the first option was an Ayurvedic treatment. The second option was allopathic. So that is what she chose. Now, this is a very common thing. People are not even willing to try Ayurvedic treatments. Even knowing that there is, these are the side effects of the allopathic medication, that is what they will opt for. I hope that after this session, that all of you would keep an open mind. Nothing works for everybody. And, that's along the lines of what Dr. Halpern has been quoted repeatedly. Nothing works for everybody. So when I prescribe a Western medicine, I would expect, and I'm talking of like the best medicine for that problem, right? What's the likelihood that's going to work? 25 to 50% is what I expect. So if you think about it, half the patients it's not going to work. But I have a list of medications, right? And then if A doesn't work, I'm going to try B. So depends on the condition, of course, but we have some options and we try them. Now, people are willing to, they'll go with that, but they'll go once to an Ayurvedic practitioner, they'll get the first prescription, they'll try it. When it doesn't work, they will never go back. Ayurveda doesn't work, I tried it. If you actually look at it that way, allopathy also doesn't work in a large number of cases. But the thing is, the advantage is people still will come back because they believe that this is what is going to help me. They come back. With Ayurveda, they don't have that openness. So I would say just let's try to keep an open mind and try that. Coming back to what Akhilesh just asked me about. So we have an integrative neuro rehabilitation center. It's called Swatantra. I had the logo on the slide as well. It's in Bangalore, and we do it's a unique neuro rehab center because we integrate full spectrum of Ayurveda, yoga, acupuncture, naturopathy, along with the full spectrum of Western medical rehabilitation treatments. So this is something that I deeply believe in. Integrative medicine is something really close to my heart and that I am trying to pursue here as well. It's a new field, so there's needs to be a lot of studies done to document the results when you combine both. But this is something I'm actively working in.
So Mrs. Chalu Agarwal, I'd like to ask her a little bit more about her initiative. You may have briefly touched upon this as the lead consultant for NAME, but if you could touch upon that briefly and speak a little bit more about your perspective on what you see as an issue for young South Asians.
Thank you, Akhilesh. So if you see, I can come back to that QR code because a lot of you must be wondering what it is about. Sorry, I don't have a description, but I'll come back to it. Before I'll answer Akhilesh's question. So you heard from me about Chai and Chat, that initiative being taken for the youth around the country, for all populations, but generally youth, because they're eagerly, wanting to talk about mental health struggles right now. It's it's the easiest thing to destigmatize mental health in youth communities, in our younger communities, because they really are eager to talk about it. So when we go to universities and we talk to them about what is it that you would like your communities to support you with, they come up to me and they say, just don't judge. Don't judge, just listen. Don't try to fix the problem. Just listen with open ears. I think that's what the youth really wants us to do for them. They, a lot of them will say, we respect our parents' journey. We respect that they are immigrants and they sacrificed a lot for us, but it's time for them to respect our journey as well. Existing in two parallel cultures cannot be easy. A lot of us, I can speak for myself, and I'm sure a lot of this crowd, we did grow up in India. We didn't have to exist between two cultures. But over here, our children are actually living in two cultures, and there's always a conflict between these cultures. So just be open-minded, listen to your children, and don't try to fix the problem. I think that's not what they want. So going to my QR code we have on the screen right now, if you take a picture, you will see the resources in Greater Houston area that NAMI has curated for you. So if you need any help, you want to connect to initiatives like Chai and Chat, you want to be part of this community conversation, take a picture and get in touch with us. Thank you.
Let's give a standing ovation for our panelists, please.